Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 5th of March. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast coming to you from ARIRANG's news center in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. North Korea fires 7 short-range projectiles off its east coast Tuesday in an apparent response to the annual South Korea-U.S. joint military drills. With the war of words across the Atlantic building up over Ukraine, Russia successfully test fires an intercontinental ballistic missile. The U.S., which says it was notified of the launch, pledges massive economic and technical assistance to Kiev. Plus, Korean Foreign Minister Kim Hyun-bin will raise the issue of Japan's wartime use of sex slaves later this Wednesday at a UN human rights meeting in Geneva. We begin with the latest on North Korea's binge of missile firings. On Tuesday, Pyongyang launched several projectiles into the East Sea in another sign of its apparent protest against the ongoing South Korea-U.S. joint military drills. Now, we are going to connect to our Kim Hyun-bin, who is standing by at Seoul's Defense Ministry for the latest. Hyun-bin.
Hey, Mark. North Korea fired a total of 7 short-range projectiles using a multiple rocket launcher into the East Sea on Tuesday. 4 of the missiles were launched from the newly developed multiple rocket launcher and have a range of about 150 kilometers. 3 missiles fired in the morning flew about 55 kilometers. The regime also fired 4 short-range missiles into the eastern waters last Thursday, and then 2 Scud-C short-range missiles on Monday. And North Korea has developed a multiple rocket launcher called a KN-09, which is presumed to have a target distance of 200 kilometers, which means that when shot from the border, it could reach Gyeongdae, where joint military bases of South Korea's Army, Air Force, and Navy headquarters are located.
So, Hyun-bin, why is North Korea doing these test firings now? It seemed as though, inter-Korean relations were improving recently.
Pyongyang called out Washington early on Tuesday for deploying its nuclear-powered submarine to South Korea's southernmost port city of Busan as part of joint military drills. And South Korea's Defense Ministry spokesperson Kim Min-seok labeled Tuesday's launches as explicit acts of aggression against the ongoing joint South Korea-U.S. military drills, adding that they are keeping a close watch on the possibility of additional provocations to come.
OK, Hyun-bin, well, let's hope there aren't that many more provocations to come. That was our Kim Hyun-bin reporting from the Defense Ministry on North Korea's test firings. Now, the recent highly emotional reunions of families separated since the Korean War served as a stark reminder that there are still over 70,000 South Koreans waiting for a chance to see their long-lost relatives one last time. Given the age of most of the applicants, President Park Geun-hye is calling for all-out efforts to ensure more families connect before it's too late. Our presidential correspondent Choi Yu-sun reports.
Just days after proposing to North Korea that reunions for war-separated families be held on a regular basis, President Park Geun-hye called for other ways for the family members on both sides of the border to resume contact.
통일부와 대한적집사사는 상봉 정례화는 물론이고 생사 확인과 서신 교환, 화상 상봉 등을 실현시키기 위해 북한과 협의하기를 바랍니다.
At Tuesday's cabinet meeting, the South Korean leader highlighted the urgency of holding more of the humanitarian events.
남북한에 있는 많은 이산 가족들이 한을 안고 돌아가셨는데 생존해 계신 이산 가족들이 한 번이라도 헤어진 가족들을 만나려면 상봉 규모를 매년 6,000명 이상으로 늘려야 하는 것으로 압니다.
The president's remarks come less than 2 weeks after the two Koreas held their first reunion event in more than 3 years. Some 80 family members from each side attended last month's family gatherings. President Park then said the government's new preparatory committee for reunification should initially listen to public opinion on the issue and draw up a blueprint in an open and transparent way. Choi Yu-sun, ARIRANG News.
As South Korea readies itself for a possible reunification of the Korean peninsula, it's looking to Germany for lessons on bringing a divided nation together. Hwang Sang-hee sat down with a German economist to hear his views on what steps Korea should take.
German economist Karl-Heinz Packe, who is an expert on German unification, says giving North Koreans a clear economic perspective is key in preparing for the reunification of the Korean peninsula.
You know, Seoul is a city of 20 million, the whole metropolitan area of 20 million people, a thriving economy. So once the border is open, North Koreans will come in great numbers.
In an interview with ARIRANG News on Tuesday, Park Hae said the Koreas must begin by forming a currency union and transforming and privatizing the rundown North Korean industrial sector. This process cost Germany over $2 trillion. Although there are varying estimates, it's expected to cost Korea around $3.5 trillion. But Park Hae assures it will be money well spent.
First of all, North Korea has quite a supply of raw materials. And with all the trade links that South Korea has to Europe and America, I think there are all advantages you can think of to invest in Northern Korea.
But the outlook is not all rosy. With a reduced threat of war upon reunification of the two Koreas, there is the question of what will happen to the thousands of North Korean soldiers who represent nearly 40% of the population.
You will have high unemployment for a while. We did have very high unemployment in Eastern Germany for a very long time, and still the unemployment rate in Eastern Germany is higher than in Western Germany, even today. But that's the price to be paid.
Park Hae says Germany experienced structural difficulties and suffered from low growth rates for a while. But despite the struggles, he agrees with South Korean President Park Geun-hye that a reunified Korea would have benefits for both sides.
So in your view, do you think reunification would be a bonanza for the two Koreas?
But we did have, as a consequence of unification, some major economic reforms. And today, Germany is one of the leading, the stability anchor in Europe. So the whole venture has been successful, and I would expect exactly the same in the case of Korea.
Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Russia has successfully test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile. The test, which the U.S. says it was well aware of in advance, adds an extra element to the ongoing tension over Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who visited Kiev Tuesday, says Moscow should stop its threats against Ukraine and de-escalate the crisis. Park Ji-won reports.
Amid the tentative situation in Ukraine, Russia's defense ministry confirmed late Tuesday that it had test-fired an intercontinental ballistic missile earlier in the day. The ministry says the RS-12M Topol missile, launched from near the Caspian Sea, successfully landed at its target in a remote area of Kazakhstan. The test was planned before the current crisis in Ukraine, and the U.S. was notified before the test. However, it adds to the undercurrent of tension between Ukraine and Russia. The test was confirmed after U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, who visited Kiev Tuesday, accused of Russia of an act of aggression in Crimea.
Here in the streets today, I didn't see anybody who feels threatened, except for the potential of an invasion by Russia. So I would hope that President Putin, who, you know, who is insisting against all evidence everywhere in the world about troops being in Crimea, that they're not there, that he will step back and listen carefully, that we would like to see this de-escalated.
The United States has also pledged massive economic and technical assistance to Ukraine's new government. The economic and technical loan package amounts to $1 billion pending congressional approval. In a press conference with reporters Tuesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin defended his country's incursion in Ukraine. Putin said what happened in Kiev was an unconstitutional overthrow, but stressed the use of military force would be the last resort in dealing with the crisis. U.S. President Barack Obama later dismissed Putin's justifications, saying they were a pretext to invade further in Ukraine. 박지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
Korea's foreign minister will raise the issue of the Japanese military's use of sex slaves during World War II at a UN human rights meeting in Geneva later on this Wednesday. Kim Hyun-bin has the details.
South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will address the UN Human Rights Council this week to raise the issue of the so-called comfort women, or women forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II. Seoul's foreign ministry said Tuesday Minister Yoon will give a speech in Geneva on Wednesday local time to convey the country's stance on the human rights issue. This is the first time since 2006 Seoul's top diplomat will attend a UN Human Rights Council session. Minister Yoon is expected to call on Japan to compensate the victims of its wartime program of military sexual slavery. The move comes amid Tokyo's continued denials of its past wrongdoing. Japanese media outlets recently quoted Japan's senior vice minister of education, Yoshitaka Sakurada, as saying that a 1993 apology for the sexual slavery system was fabricated, while calling for a re-examination of the supporting testimony. The Kono statement is an official apology issued by Tokyo's then Chief Cabinet Secretary Yohei Kono to apologize for the atrocities Japan committed during its imperialist past. Tokyo's right-wing Liberal Democratic Party said those who were foreign ministry officials at the time should be summoned regarding the testimony. The LDP also said it will start a petition to call for a revision of the statement. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Korea's foreign exchange reserves rose to a record high in February, making it the 8th record-breaking month on the bounce. The Bank of Korea said Wednesday that the nation's foreign reserves totaled over $350 billion as of the end of last month. That's up $3.4 billion from January. The central bank attributes the record high to the weak US dollar that pushed up the value of non-dollar assets. It also said investment profits rose. Korea has the 7th largest foreign reserves in the world. Now, while Korea is considered a leading nation when it comes to science and technology, there's still a lot of room for improvement. With that in mind, 2 government ministries have released plans to boost investments in research and development. Shin Se-min reports.
To give Korea's research and development sector a much-needed boost, the government will be pouring more money into related institutes over the coming months. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning laid out its plan Tuesday to provide 68.7 billion won, or over $64 million this year. The money will mainly go toward establishing an R&D-based station for small and medium-sized enterprises in 4 different Korean cities. The science districts will foster business research laboratories, improve exclusive research zones, and promote networking among researchers. More than $54 million will be funneled into businesses to commercialize research outcomes, and the rest will go towards establishing a better environment for startups. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy also laid out its own plan on Tuesday, promising to invest over $140 million in the nation's smart sensor industry over the next 6 years. The government will use a major chunk of that investment in generic technology development. Along with wearable smart devices and autonomous vehicles, which represent just 2 of 13 industrial projects, the government is looking to create more sensor-related products for the international market. The global smart sensor industry is booming. But here in Korea, the market is led by smaller companies, and they haven't been able to compete effectively on the world stage. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Now, this next story won't come as too big of a surprise for people living here in the Korean capital, but a new study shows Seoul is among the world's top 20 most expensive cities in the world. The London-based Economist Intelligence Unit's annual worldwide cost of living survey found Seoul to be the 17th most expensive city to live in out of the 131 cities it surveyed. The survey is based on the average price of various goods and services, from food and public transportation fees to private school tuition. The most expensive city to live in is Singapore, followed by Paris and Oslo. Mumbai was ranked the world's cheapest city. Korea's nominee for central bank governor Lee Ju-yeol is expected to take the post up on April 1st. And he says he wants to communicate more fully with the market. Hwang Ji-ae has more on the BOK veterans' vision and some of the challenges that lie ahead.
The nominee for the Bank of Korea's next governor, Lee Ju-yeol, says he fully acknowledges the importance of communicating with the market. During a phone interview with the Korean daily Joseonilbo on Monday, he said that the central bank has to gain the trust of the people. He went on to say that the central bank has to focus not just on the numbers, but should look for ways to be in harmony with the actual economic sentiment. Back in 2009, when Lee was sworn in as the senior deputy governor, he pledged to focus on boosting economic growth by working closely with the government. Whether Lee's perception of the economy remains intact is unknown, but the veteran central bank official is considered to be neutral when it comes to monetary policy. The presidential office spokesperson said that Lee has a profound knowledge of the central bank's business and has a good sense of the international financial market. Lee started work at the central bank in 1977 and has held key positions through the years, including as the head of the research department. Once he takes office next month, experts say that he will be preoccupied with matters such as how to weather the impact of the U.S. Federal Reserve's tapering of its monetary stimulus program. The nation's snowballing household debt will also be a concern.
Lee will have to think deeply in terms of monetary policy about how to counteract the real estate and household debt problems that are growing as major threats to the Korean economy.
The National Assembly will hold a confirmation hearing for Lee within the next 3 weeks. The lawmakers do not, however, have the power to veto the appointment. Hwang Ji-ae, ARIRANG News.
Good day, I'm Eunice Kim, and here are your headlines from around the world. The 12th National People's Congress has just begun today in Beijing, China, and ahead of it, Premier Li Keqiang announced that China will keep its economic growth target at 7.5%, the same as last year, while its national defense spending will be expanded by 12.2% to $131 billion. The economic growth target is in line with Beijing's plans to guide the world's second largest economy to more sustainable growth. Li will launch the annual parliament meeting that will run for 9 days. Turning now to Egypt, Armed Forces Chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has given his clearest indication yet that he will run for president. State news agency MENA reports the popular military man told an audience at a Cairo graduation ceremony that he could not turn his back on calls by the majority of Egyptians for him to run for president, and that official procedures will follow soon. In July last year, al-Sisi deposed Egypt's first democratically elected leader Mohamed Morsi. Egypt has been caught in a bloody political struggle since then. And over in the United States, President Barack Obama has submitted a budget blueprint for the 2015 fiscal year that features a focus on fighting poverty. He proposed boosting tax credits and job training programs for U.S. workers, as well as increasing spending on infrastructure and expanding early childhood education. The proposal marks a shift away from last year's emphasis on deficit cutting. It faces strong resistance from Republicans who prefer a reduced government role in promoting economic opportunity. Syria has drafted a plan that would remove all of its remaining chemical weapons out of the country. According to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Damascus would miss the original deadline to completely get rid of the weapons by April, but that there had been good progress. About a third of Syria's toxic arsenal will have been removed by the end of this week. The global chemical arms watchdog said the rest is on course to be shipped out by the revised deadline of June.
Now, if you were to ask fans in Korea which Olympian they would like to meet, chances are they will say figure queen Kim Hyun-bin. And on Tuesday, fans had a chance to meet her at a fan meeting. Now, with the fan meeting filled with fans and the media, they had a chance to find out about her plans after retirement. And with that, Kim Hyun-bin stated that she will always be involved with figure skating even 10 years down the road because there's nothing she knows outside of figure skating. While she's been spending some alone time for now, fans can expect a gala show coming up shortly. And moving over to football, where the South Korean national football team is set to face off against Greece. And with the World Cup right around the corner, there's still a lot of work to be done for the Taeguk Warriors. And of course, the main focus in this match will be the return of Park Ju-young, who was finally included in the latest roster by manager Hong Myung-bo. And with that, chances are Park will go in as the lone striker with Son Heung-min, Koo Ja-chul, and Lee Chung-myung backing him up on the offense. Now, the major leagues have a long history and a long list of names who were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, the KBO, well, zero, but can look forward to our first KBO Hall of Famer in 2016. With the KBO Hall of Fame being built in the city of Busan, KBO officials announced on Tuesday that they will mark the grand opening of the Hall of Fame by inducting their very first Hall of Famer. Now, the fans over in Busan will get a treat as they will probably induct Choi Dong-won, the former Lotte Giants pitcher, posthumously as their treat. And moving over to some Tuesday night's KBL action, the Jeonju KCC Aegis beat the Incheon Itilan Elephants in a high-scoring game, 91-83. Meanwhile, with the Goyang Orions taking on the Anyang KGC, let's take a look at the highlights. Now, a close game from the start as the Orions take a 23-20 lead after the first quarter before KGC cuts the deficit to 37-36 going into halftime. Third quarter, KGC rallies to take a 1-point lead going into the fourth, but a monster fourth quarter from the Orions, outscoring KGC 25-16 as they take this game 80-71. And finishing things off with some V-League action, we had GS Caltex cruise past Daejeon KGC 3-1 over on the women's side. Meanwhile, Samsung Hwaju Blue Fangs taking on Uri-Card. Let's take a look at the highlights. Now, the Blue Fangs have been dominating Uri-Card this season, and they continue to do so, taking the first two sets 25-16 and 25-20 before Uri-Card comes back with a 25-23 third set win. But with Leo Martinez exploding with 48 points on the night, the Blue Fangs take this match 3-1 as they get closer to their league title. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. Well, chilly start to the morning will pave the way for a chilly day, as highs in most areas will notice 4 to 5 degrees lower daytime highs today. And some parts of Gangwon-do will receive heavy snowfall of up to 20 centimeters today, so the heavy snow advisory was issued in those areas. But the rest of the country could expect to see a beautiful blue sky, but the strong gusty winds will start to blow in, making you feel quite cold this afternoon, so let's bundle up before heading out. And it will be colder for next 2 days, so these chilly temperatures will stick around till the end of the work week, and these brief cold snaps should ease up by the weekend. So please do keep that in mind, and here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul started out at -1, and afternoon high will only rise to 5, and Daegu will get up to 11, while Gwangju and Busan should top out at 8 and 12 respectively. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will climb up to 7, while the top temperature on Mount Keungang will be at 1. Now that's all from me at this hour, and hope you have a wonderful day.
And that's all for now. Thanks ever so much for joining us. We'll be back at noon Korea time. In the meantime, you can always catch up with what's been happening. We have a smartphone application, and you can also go to our website, arirang.co.kr/news.